I'll tell you what, if only Kendall Coffey could see how that there's now a spinning that goes along with the song Spinning the Law. And joining us now is Kendall Coffey, famed attorney. Hello, sir.
Hey, how are you? Doing great. Love to hear my music. Love to hear your voice.
Well, there's no one happier than you right now.
That's for sure.
I always appreciate your time, sir, very much. You know, it's funny. I thought of you the other day, yesterday, when I was Andrea Mitchell celebrating, believe it or not, the birthday of Castro, 88th birthday, and Elian Gonzalez was at the party in, she was reporting on it, at the party in Cuba, and Elian says that Castro made him the man that he is today. And I said, of course he did. It's a communist country. He couldn't choose to be the kind of man he wants to be. So she was literally correct and didn't realize what she was saying. But that takes you back, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And you said it all. Castro's made Cuba the country it is today, which was a once beautiful, dynamic country with a miserable economy and a totalitarian dictatorship. So,
and just tell the people your role in that whole scenario.
Well, I was fighting the Clinton administration, fighting the Castro regime at the same time, trying to give this child who lost his mother in the dark of night, trying to come here to a life of freedom, trying to get him at least a hearing, an asylum hearing, where his interests could be considered. But he never even had a day in court. It just became an immigration decision to send him back, and it was unfortunate in my view in many respects. It was a controversial case. I know it was sort of, talk about spin, it was sort of spun as the rights of a father. We all respect the rights of a father, but, we did think that at least the fact that it was a bleak existence in a totalitarian regime where he would be used as a trophy, and as you pointed out, he's being used as a trophy to this day, was at least something that some neutral decision maker ought to consider. But anyway, I'm almost over it.
Yeah, well, no, you did great work, and I just want you to hear this report from Andrea Mitchell, because she said something else. I know this wasn't on our docket, but give a listen to this.
And Cuba is celebrating Fidel Castro's 88th birthday today, starting the party early with a special concert last night, the opening of an exhibition called Fidel is Fidel, attended by Elian Gonzalez and his family. That is Elian right there. Gonzalez is now 20 years old. He was only 5 when he was at the center of that bitter custody dispute back in 1999 between his father in Cuba and his Miami relatives after his mother died on a raft. Gonzalez talked about Castro with admiration last night, saying he made him the person he is today.
His mother died on a raft. It sounds like she was swimming in the pool and, and fell asleep and hit her head. I mean, his mother died trying to bring Elian away from Cuba, escaping Cuba. She conveniently left that out.
Yeah, it was part of the reality that maybe we didn't do a good job of communicating it, Steve. Maybe it's on us. But when I asked the family relatives why were they so determined to give Elian at least a chance of staying here, and they said it was about his mother, who died so that he might have a life of hope and freedom in this country, and they wanted to respect her giving her own life for her child. They wanted to respect that sacrifice. It seems to be a sacrifice that perhaps some have forgotten, but it's something that I'll never forget.
All right, let's move on, and appreciate your comments from a man who shared in that real historical moment, and you should be proud of what you did. Let's talk about what's going on now in Ferguson. We just had the former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales on, and he said, as far as the Justice Department sending people over there, usually they wait, but in this case, he says maybe he doesn't know, but maybe the authorities there requested it, and then maybe it's not a bad thing. When you see the reaction of some on the left, some in the media, the Al Sharpton, Jesse Jacksons, it's here we go again with Trayvon Martin all over again, isn't it?
There's a sense of that here we go again, and it ultimately is not a media issue, although it is heading down that path. But I think that for a lot of reasons, the former Attorney General is right. It may not be a bad thing at all for the Department of Justice to come in. They're neutral. I think they'll take an objective look at this. They're not part of the local community. They're going to go back to Washington when they're finished with their work. I think they're in the best position to do what is very hard to do, either from a media standpoint or from a local standpoint, which is listen to the witnesses, evaluate the witnesses, put together as best as you can what actually happened, which I don't think any of us know at this point, and then recognize that whatever you think might have actually happened, it's going to be a function of what witnesses say and what the evidence shows, and you have to follow that evidence wherever it may take you courageously, even if it means to say yes or even if it means to say no to a frustrated public.
What about the issue of the police officer's name? The media is banging the drum that this, you got to release this man's name, but if in fact the authorities fear for the safety of the officer and the officer's family and the officer's home and relatives, if they release the name, is there any legal reason for them to release the name right now?
I don't know the laws of that state, but I wouldn't want the name released. If I were a prosecutor involved in that, or if I were in the police department, or if I were just a member of the public concerned about the officer's safety, what will it accomplish? I mean, is it going to do anything but put the officer, his family, his friends at some risk of, at a minimum, harassment, perhaps more? I don't see that there's any investigative value or truth-seeking value at this point. Let a responsible authority interview the witnesses, look at whatever physical evidence there is, including forensic evidence, and come up with a reasoned determination. But to put the officer at any risk, I don't see that as being necessary. And by the way, there are a lot of scenarios where information about law enforcement personnel, prosecutors, and judges is withheld in order to make a reasonable effort to protect that person who, by the way, is putting their life on the line to protect the public. Why should there be added risk to an already dangerous duty?
Yeah, no, and I haven't heard anybody citing any law or violation of any law in withholding the name. They're just saying that it should be released. It should be. So I'd be surprised if there was such a law. I'm sure we probably would have heard about it by now. Let's talk about President Obama, and also the reason we had former Attorney General Alberto Gonzales on was he wrote a piece at USA Today talking about the fact that he thinks that these children who deserve asylum, the ones who have come recently without parents, he believes that we need to take care of them, school them, the whole thing, if they are granted a place here. And you know, there's a story out that Obama plans to send a bunch of these kids, these illegal kids, to U.S. schools and do just that. He's coming back to Washington reportedly on Monday. Nobody knows why. He might pull the trigger on that executive order regarding immigration reform. When it comes to this issue, how difficult is it, legally speaking? If we grant asylum to these kids, or a particular kid is granted asylum, or is granted, well, come back in 6 months for another hearing, we're then responsible for those children, right?
Well, it's a huge responsibility, and a fair bit of that is already required under the Constitution. This may have been what the former Attorney General was referring to some years ago. Not surprising, a state case coming out of Texas, which deals with so many of these issues. The Supreme Court held that an undocumented child has a constitutional right to a public education. And so that's the starting point for this or any other administration in trying to address it. It is, as the law currently stands under the Supreme Court decision, a constitutional right. So with that is the framework, then I think the administration or any state or local authority is put in the position of having to provide for that. And now the logistics, the costs are huge to think of local governments and local education systems, and many of which are already underfunded. What does that mean if you're putting in an additional number of students who may not speak English and require additional teaching resources? What does that mean to an already crowded classroom? So all of this, I think to an extent, the local officials' hands are tied on the threshold question of, do you have to provide a public education? The Constitution says yes.
And Gonzalez, by the way, said that it's the federal government's responsibility to provide and pick up the tab. That's what he believes.
Well, they should. They should. I don't know how a local school district has any responsibility or the resources to deal with it. I think he's absolutely right about that.
Kendall Coffey, always great talking to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey, great talking to you, Steve.
Take care. Kendall Coffey, ladies and gentlemen, and the book Spinning the Law talks about that entire Elian Gonzalez case, Bush v. Gore, the whole thing. He was involved in so many great cases. Hey, before we go, we want your opinion. Should the children of illegals be deported or educated? Newsmax.com/polls.